As a card-carrying member of the Insane Bitches Committee, I love a crazy woman. But the way you guys are talking out of your mouth sideways about my girl Juana la Loca has gotta stop. Because back in the day, they'd call you crazy for anything. Not being firmly on the Pope's dick would get you called crazy. So sit down, shut up, and listen to the story of Juana la Loca, also known as Joanna the Mad. She was born November 6, 1479, and she died April 1555. She was the mother of 6 children and the 3rd child and 2nd daughter of Isabella of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon. And she might be the most famous middle child to ever middle child. Let me explain. As a young infanta or princess of Spain, she was never the heir or spare of the family. Her very powerful parents saw her role in the family as a marriage pawn to help form powerful alliances and, best case scenario, maybe expand some territory. But little Juana would grow to be so much more than that. But like her siblings, Juana is getting the best education. She's learning languages, history, philosophy, genealogy, mathematics, law, court etiquette, dancing, drawing, needlework, horseback riding. All the hitters. And the story goes that she was quite the rebellious middle child. And because her parents are like the Catholic monarchs, it's quite a scandalous little rebellion. She'd be like, Catholicism's actually hella cringe, the rituals are giving witchcraft, and all these adult male virgins are bumming me the fuck out. And her mother Isabella was like, you are crazy as shit, string her up to the ceilings, cleanse her soul of heretics, we're not doing this. And supposedly strung her ass up as punishment during the Spanish Inquisition. Though, there are some historians that don't believe that happened, and instead claim that the English Victorians made that story up, because historically, the English are the most flaky liars imaginable, and they lied about historical records all the fucking time. But you guys have asked me about her being strung up particularly, so I'm just gonna let you work that one out. But the Victorians weren't the only weirdos lying on Juana's name. Her life was filled with bullshit and accusations. Hence us still calling her crazy 500 years later. And that whole reputation started with the marriage that was arranged by her parents. As part of a deal with the Habsburgs, Juana and her older brother Juan were betrothed to Maximilian of Austria's children. And this is significant because old Maxipad was the king of the Romans, later the Holy Roman Emperor. And his first wife, Mary the Rich, was the Duchess of Burgundy. The Spanish heir, Juan, marries Margaret of Austria, though the marriage was incredibly short-lived and produced no living children, before Juan's sudden and tragic passing. But Juana's marriage to Philip the Handsome was much more eventful, and would set the stage for the rule that would change Spain forever. Which means, strap in bitch, because we are coming up to Habsburg Spain. And tragically, Juana would lose her older brother, her older sister, and her nephew that were all in line of succession before her. So by the year 1504, Juana is the oldest surviving child. Juana is married, she's a young mother with 4 kids in her mid-20s, she has 2 sons, 2 daughters, and that kind of promising line of succession made her a very strong case to be heir for not only her mother's kingdom of Castile, but on paper for her father's kingdom of Aragon as well. Because Aragon was kind of grumpy and shitty and weird, and they would only leave Aragon to a woman if she had a son next in line for succession, which Juana did. And so after a couple years of working it out politically, she would be named Princess of Asturias. And in 1504, when her mother Isabella of Castile dies, she's named Queen of Castile. Well, I mean, it wasn't that smooth. It was actually a colossal shit show and really mean. Juana's father, Ferdinand, was a bit of a freak and not very keen to give up his power in Castile, since he had been ruling as king consort to his wife's kingdom of Castile, but he was the rightful king to his own kingdom of Aragon. So in order to try to hold on to some authority, he's like, actually, Juana is off her fucking rocker, boys. I should probably be co-monarch with her to make sure everything's smooth. And he starts minting some coins like, Fifi and Jojo, co-monarchs forever. But Juana's Habsburg husband, Philip the Handsome, who is not handsome, sees what Ferdinand is doing and is like, hey, she's actually not crazy, she is fine to rule, and me and Juana are gonna be co-monarchs, king and queen, like it should be. And he starts minting his own coins, with him and his wife as the monarchs. And the royal beef between these two men is really heating up, and Juana does not want to go against her husband, and she does not want to go against her father, so she's just stuck in the middle, and they throw her ass in confinement. And as they've got their little dicks whipped out trying to measure them, Philip goes to all the Castilian nobles who aren't that fond of Ferdinand, Mr. Fifi, and he starts trying to get them on his side to garner support. And Fifi is embarking on some half-baked plan to try to unite with the French, and he's married his niece in trying to just start a whole new family to inherit the kingdoms, which fails, and then causes the Spanish nobles to side even farther with Philip. And then the two of them have this weird secret meeting of guys being dudes, and Fifi decides to just give the reins of Castile to Philip and Juana. But still giving Fifi the right to intervene should Juana start acting like a bird. And the couple's 6-year-old son, Charles, is named their heir apparent. But sacre bleu, King Philip is dead. Well, almost dead. A few months later, he's either poisoned or he's just so ugly his body can't fight off illness and he dies. And his death would widow Juana while she's pregnant with her 6th child. So here she is again, the fucking survivor of all survivors in terms of Spanish royalty. And now is her time to rule. But now she has to fight all of the crazy rumors and stories that her father and her husband had made up about her. Her funds are greatly reduced. She is just battling with the government, trying to get any respect. And she's facing a brutal famine and plague combo that was just curb stomping her kingdom. She was floundering, and her dad is just sitting over there in Aragon, watching his plans play out, letting it get worse and worse until he can come and save the day, effectively regaining authority in Juana's kingdom. And Juana, the crazy single grieving mother of 6 children, accepts her father's aid. And Fifi has absolutely no problem calling his daughter insane and is even using Juana's grief from losing her husband as proof that she's mentally unstable. Though she was known to stand her ground for some incidences and was definitely refusing to sign over all of her power to her father. But it barely mattered, and by 1510 she was barely a queen, pretty much just in title alone, and had zero authority to rule or even a royal staff of advisors. And with nothing at her disposal, Juana was placed in confinement again. And then her father would go on to rule her kingdom in her place for the next 6 years. But I mean, whatever, who cares? Because he dies in 1516 and the Habsburg Spain party really gets off and poppin'. Because get this, when her father died, the government didn't even tell Juana that her father had passed away. And the government just ruled Castile and Aragon, her 2 rightful kingdoms, in her place without telling her for almost a year. She was just vibing, thinking her dad's alive and ruling the kingdom, and then a couple of her kids show up and are like, hey, we actually need you to sign the kingdom over to Charles. Because once her son Charles shows up and gets the right to the kingdom successfully signed over to him by his mother, I mean, it didn't really get much better for Juana at all. Charles had no intent in actually ruling as co-monarchs with Juana, and he just left her in confinement for the rest of her life. But there is a lot of change happening in Spain right now, and the people are not super fond of it. So as long as Juana is living, she is a beacon of hope for a rebellion. A lot of the Spanish did not like the Habsburg influence that was taking over in Spain. And in 1519, when Emperor Maximilian dies and Charles is named the Holy Roman Emperor in addition to King of Aragon and King of Castile, the rebels were really at their boiling point. And so the rebels campaigned to Juana for her support in starting their own government that would rule closer to the way that her parents did. And had Juana signed that, that would have been law, but Juana refused, instead defending the right of her son's Castilian kingship, and as a whole defending the rights of her children within the Habsburg dynasty. And as a reward for this loyalty, her son repaid her by just keeping her locked in confinement with her daughter Catalina. Until Catalina was ripped away from her and married off to the King of Portugal at 18. Because Catalina was the only child that was even raised with Juana, as her 5 oldest children had been raised with their Aunt Margaret in like the Netherlands region of Habsburg territory. And because Charles didn't want to deal with any more rebellions or people thinking they could use Juana for political power, he just had it so no one was allowed to go talk to Juana, and she just slipped farther and farther into solitude. And Juana lived out her days in confinement with her mental and physical health on the decline, slipping deeper and deeper into forced madness until she died on Good Friday, April 12, 1555, at age 75 years old. And that's the story of Juana la Loca, one of history's most disrespected women, in my opinion. And if you want more juicy details of this story, maybe from another angle, then I'll see you in the next one for the story of her husband, Philip the Handsome, the first link to this Habsburg debacle. Say bye, see you in the next one.